Hey guys, you know how we used to do April Fools? We used to do April Fools episodes. We've decided to opt out of that this year. After you've done it for 6 years,
Pranks aren't fucking funny.
Yeah, you've done all that you can do. So we're gonna talk about the movie April Fools, which I'm kind of shocked we haven't done in 400 episodes or so. But first things first. If you had given me $1 million and asked me, you'll get this money if you can tell me what year the movie April Fool's Day was released, I 1,000% would have said, like, I don't know, 1982, 1981.
It's 87, right?
86. I thought that this was such an early, I thought this was right there with, like, they put out Bloody Valentine, like a year later they did April Fool's Day. Like, this is
Happy
so...
birthday to me.
Yeah,
Friday
this
the
is
13th,
so
Friday the
late.
14th.
Yeah, like,
Well, no, also the reason why it feels like that is because I don't think that they were working with the higher quality film stock. It has a bit of a tang to it. You know, it kind of has got the Mutilator look to it.
But this is also... We're getting a post Back to the Future Biff Tannen then in this movie.
Yeah, he was slumming it for this movie. Now, I mean, I like this movie, so any criticism I have of April Fool's Day... So none of us actually picked this. This was a group choice,
This
right?
was just instead of trying to figure out some dumb prank like we've done for 6 years, let's just finally talk about this movie, because I think this is one of those films that had this reputation of being a bad movie for a really long time, and then maybe in the last 5 to 6 years has kind of started to get a little reevaluated as, like, you know what? This was just a movie that wasn't advertised properly, but it's actually what it's supposed to be. It is very successful at being that thing. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies where I don't think I would watch it every year. I don't think I'd watch it every 2 or 3 years. But if it was on, I'd be like, oh, cool, April Fool's Day is on. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh,
this got
turn
a
that
cult
shit off.
following because it was on late night cable constantly.
Well, because it was so tame. It's such a tame movie. But I think that's the charm.
I do like the conceit of it. I really do. I mean, it's barely horror. It's pretty much horror adjacent.
It's meta. It's cool. Meta more than anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Which I can appreciate now. I wasn't thrilled with my watch, but I think I probably fell victim to the same thing that everybody else fell victim to. Was like, I was expecting a dumb slasher.
I was gonna say, this is your first watch?
This is my first watch. I was expecting a dumb slasher, and shit was tame, and not like, I mean, I'm not a big slasher person really anyway in the grand scheme of things. Like, if you do something interesting, it's great, which is what makes the last 25 minutes of this exciting for me. You know what I mean? But like getting to that point, it was so arbitrary. Like, it was so like, what it
Kyle's like, I'm totally out. My suspension of disbelief is shot because there's no reason for all you getting murdered.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, you guys are just supposed to have this fine time. You're all acting like you've never been on a vacation before, and you're immediately gonna have sex. And to me,
that's spring break in college, right?
I
don't know, but I'm guessing.
This is the most extreme presentation to me. Like, I know we've seen a lot of silly shit in slasher movies, but it's literally the moment they step on that boat, everybody's trying to spit game. That is the worst game I've ever heard or seen in a slasher movie. Like, a straight up pulling out of a porno mag while somebody's reading Paradise Lost. Found it. And then just him talking about versions of Muff, of Muffy. I was just like, guys.
Yeah, that doesn't get the juices going, if you know what I'm saying.
No. And then, like, later, it just carries out throughout, because then he pulls out a gimp mask. So somebody packed a gimp mask, thinking that was going to be
actors.
Let me throw this at you, Kyle. Remember, I think it was when we did Terror Train, and we had talked about, like, Tubi hands you some money and says you can remake a movie, but it needs to be like kind of a movie that doesn't have like a ton of love and fanfare, and you can do whatever you want with it. When I hit play on this movie and I'm watching the intro to this movie, I had such a random idea that is either a really, really good idea or a fucking horrendous idea, which is I wonder if you could remake April Fool's Day in the format of like a found home video, like a home movie vacation tape. Because, you know, like it starts off with like that shot of them talking to everybody on the pier before the movie starts. And I'm like, I wonder how effective this would work. You could still do the twist ending that everything's fine, but like if it's just someone's like family vacation video as shit gets crazier and crazy. So just, you know, if that Tubi phone call ever comes in.
Yes.
What I would love is for this to be remade and for it to actually be people getting murdered, because it's a double twist.
Yeah.
Where it's a twist on a twist, where everybody was in on the joke and then somebody was like, but I could really kill you.
Well,
So
apparently that
we
was
get
the
2
original
acts of-
shot ending, was that one of them like goes insane and tries to kill Muffy and then they kill him. But then they were like, you know what? Let's just stick with the upbeat good vibes ending of this movie. And
it is so upbeat. Like the ending was almost uncanny to watch. It was the version Mama Told Me Not to Come just playing.
Yeah. Well,
Like
we're not even. So I have two music
sorry,
notes.
Sorry,
I've got 2 music notes,
very
and
far
one
ahead.
is that I actually think that the opening little. I just wrote like the creepy title screen jingle is kind of cool. Like it's this like little music box deal. But then I wish I had recorded it so I could remember what it was. The closing credit song is like right up there. If it was more of a dour ending, it would be on the same level as like that cover of Blue Moon coming in at the end of American Werewolf in Paris, or American Werewolf in London, because it's so just like. It's just like, yeah, we have an April Fool's time. Like it's like such this crazy, upbeat, happy song that's playing out of nowhere.
I almost just gave away my double feature with like another song I was about to scream out, but I'm gonna save it.
Yeah, it could have been like Celebration by Kool and the Gang. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like she fakes slitting Muffy's throat, gives her a kiss on the cheek, and it's just like, oh, woohoo! As the credits start coming.
It was. I mean, that's the thing about this fucking movie, man, is that like, I mean, does the ending and the whole concept of the movie give it a solid place in anything? Does it even? I mean, there's just a lot of diehard slasher fans that exist. It seems like a niche, like genre fandom, right? Like we've seen it.
We really shouldn't be talking about Brian like this without him here.
No, but I know what you're saying, because I feel like this is one of those movies where it's like the ending of this movie either completely solidifies the entire journey for you or makes you fucking furious that you wasted 92
Polarizing.
minutes. Like it's like there's no one who watches that ending and is just like, huh. Like you're
right.
Like it either sways you to one of the two sides.
Yeah. And you know what, dude? For me, like as much as like I was kind of annoyed with the watch of it, like it does like I don't know if it has any rewatchability for me, but I'm like, all right, I appreciate it.
I think it's worth rewatching, honestly. Just because I watched it. I remember watching it for the first time in college, not knowing the twist, buying into every aspect of it. All right, these people are getting killed. It's probably the guy that like they smashed underneath the boat, or he's the red herring and there's something else. Like, you know, like fully buying into it. And then the big reveal, that is so fucking funny to me. Like she walks into this room and there's everybody and no one reacts. Like it's not like a surprise or anything. They're just like sitting there reading magazines.
Well, it's a green room. They've been there for hours
like
since their death.
Totally unfazed by anything that's happening.
Where did they pee?
Yeah, but it was like
where
that moment. I remember it was a group of us watching it. We were like, "What the fuck?" We were so angry, and I really haven't watched it since then. I know I bought a copy of it, so I must have watched it at least one other time since then. But like passively, like a lot of the time, like if I buy a movie that I've seen before, the first rewatch is more like, let me make sure this thing's not scratched up and skipping and damaged. Like it's just like put it on and make sure it plays to the end. All right. Yeah. So this was like the first time I really sat down and watched it. and knowing that all of this is like smoke and mirrors fun, it is an interesting watch when you're just like, all right, like it's like watching a magician perform a magic trick that you already know where the sleight of hand is, so you're kind of just like watching, or I mean for you and I, watching a wrestling match when you know the mechanics of how wrestling works, so like every time they lock up, you're like, okay, they're telling each other what the next move is going to be. You're like,
I did feel like I was the one who got fooled in a lot of ways. Like I appreciated that. Like I had no idea.
Fool me, daddy.
Fool me, daddy.
Fool me, trickster, daddy.
And I do want to drink to that because I do have a Miller Lite. Oh, that's not a Miller Lite.
Oh,
it's Lord
my
Hobo
God.
Life. It's a non-alcoholic IPA. April Fools, everybody.
You April Fools us, you son of a bitch.
I April Fools myself too, Kyle.
What'd you
At
do?
the behest of Chris Robinson of the Analog Jones and the Temple of Film podcast.
Analog Jones.
He didn't talk me out of trying hard Mountain Dew. This is the worst shit I have ever fucking tasted.
Did you have to buy that in a 6-pack?
I had to buy it in a 12-pack case.
No, you.
So is that coming to creature feature then? I think.
Oh hell yeah, baby! It's gonna give it away. But yeah, so if we're talking about divorced dad rock, look at the giant badass eagle.
Look at this giant badass thing.
It also gonna make me shit my pants. It's got a bunch. It says 0 sugar, which I didn't realize before
That's
I purchased
a
it, or else I
lie.
would not have purchased it, because aspartame or stevia or whatever they use to sweeten this bullshit is it's going to make me piss out my butt.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
this is April Fool's. I fucked up.
To you.
Yeah, I don't know if it even it's been at least 20 years since I had regular Mountain Dew. I have no idea what Mountain Dew tastes like anymore.
I can't
This
believe
could
you're
be
drinking that. I'm
literally
so
any
happy.
White Claw. It
Yeah.
could just be
Yeah.
White Claw, but it's worse than White Claw. So it's punishment for
there you
my
go.
life choices.
I want to talk about the humor in the movie, and I
Humor,
say
question mark?
that I say that with a question mark, because it's definitely. I mean, this is 1986 humor all over the place. It's like a slight like lifestyles of the rich and the famous kind of thing going on at one point. But I had to write down one note, and that one note says, the two guys fooling around in bed together is literally any time Kyle, Scott, and myself are in a hotel room at any given convention, where he's just like, "Ooh, cuddles. We're gonna go."
And it's literally not funny to anybody else.
No,
So that tracks with the humor of this movie.
Yeah, they're not even performing for other people. Like there's no one else watching them do this. I'm like, yep, that is us in a hotel room.
I mean, also that's any Geekscape. Absolutely any Geekscape
listen,
podcast.
I haven't talked about the cock shark in a
sleepover.
hot minute, but yeah, Jonathan London.
We're using full names.
Yeah, no,
I'm gonna shame him.
no, people know who the Podfather is. So J-Lo, if you're the last one to
I
wake
thought he was
up,
J Law.
no, he's J-Lo. If you're the last one to wake up, J-Lo will start whispering, "You hear that sound? Dun-dun." And then he'll stick his hand underneath the bed sheet and make like a little shark fin in it. And he's like, "Oh no, protect your cock! The cock shark's coming for you!" And I'll just start kind of like nipping at your leg until you're like, "All right, I'm up, I'm ready to go."
Yeah, I'm up, I'm ready to go is exactly how
ready
I
to
react.
go. I'm staying in bed.
Don't play chicken with my chicken, because you're gonna have a bad time. I will call your bluff. But also, isn't it just so funny how us millennial dudes? Well, Kyle, fuck off, because you're barely a millennial. But Jonathan and I are definitely
That's new knowledge
elder.
to you.
Yeah, apparently.
Sir.
We're elder millennials, and the way that we have like physical touch with other men is so fucking weird. And that's not an indictment of Matt or of Jonathan at all. It's literally just because we grew up with everybody calling everybody else the F word.
Yeah.
And it's like so deeply ingrained in us that it's like, if I hug my friend, am I gay?
Yeah. Now
We know that's a fucking lie that's been trotted out
meanwhile,
by boomers.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, bring it in, brother. I'm gonna
No,
hold.
I hug
I
all
know.
the men in my life, but it's
look,
still there's this
all
weird
three
part
of
in the
us.
back of my brain.
all three of us, you have to let us know when the hug is over because I'll hold that hug for hours.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah. We
cock
love
to cock.
you.
Yeah.
If I don't feel the warmth from your penis, it's not a real hug.
I just need a little bit of I need like a fist bump of dicks before I know that it's over.
Dude, the other day, Megan sent me a fucking TikTok about, she was like, she sent me this TikTok, and this is what married couples who both have TikToks do. They don't post anything, they just are consumers of TikTok. Yep. You watch individually and you send each other the shit you want to talk about later, and then you watch it together and you get to re-enjoy it all over again. And so she sent me one that was this woman was like, guys, they can twist it 360 degrees. And Megan was like, is that true? And I was like, hell yeah, it's true. And I pulled my pants down and I twisted my wiener 360 degrees, and she was like, wow. And I'm like, baby, we've been together for 14 years. You could have asked this a long time ago.
You didn't know it could corkscrew?
So true friendship is literally making making a double corkscrew with your cocks.
Right. It's a friendship bracelet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Everybody
I think any male that was 12 and alone figured that out pretty quickly.
I just love how it was so surprising to her.
Yeah. Well, it's not a sex ed thing that you learn.
No.
Yeah, but you know what? In Megan's defense, and for women all over the world's defense, there are plenty of guys who don't know anything about the woman's anatomy. So, like, I'll let them get away with not knowing that we can turn our cock into circles if we
can do
to.
tricks, tips, tricks.
Has she never
tricks.
seen Puppetry of the Penis? Because I saw those ads quite a bit when I was a child.
Back to April Fool's Day, because this is the most unhinged we've been in quite a while. I love this poster. I think that the biggest problem with I have an original of this poster down in the basement that I just need to get framed. When I have my media room in the basement, I'll pay the $100 to get it framed. But I mean, I love this poster so much with the hair that's turned into a noose behind the back. I think that loving that as the VHS art for so long made for an unwinnable battle for this movie when I finally watched it for the first time in like 2006. But I definitely warmed to it because, as Matt said very early on in this episode, if you remember, he said that they didn't market this movie right. And it's true. Like, I don't even know how you would market this movie because this is wild.
They play a joke on the audience. They're playing a joke on the whole audience.
But I like that. But the thing that's wild about this movie, to me, is that not just IMDb, but Wikipedia both call this movie. They point to the similarities between this and Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is just insane. Like, this obscure slasher mystery meta pastiche of horror movies and an Agatha Christie is just not what you expect when you open up the internet to do
That also
research.
feels like either a selling point or a thing to be like, I don't want anything to do with it. Really. You know, it seems such like a polarizing description of such too.
But I also think that this movie, like, even if you take it for face value, because I agree with you, I don't know how you would advertise this movie because the point is that it's pulling a joke on the audience by the end of the movie. It's supposed to be, it honestly gives you a similar vibe as like going on a haunted hayride. Like, you're getting that like fear release effect of like, this is all fun, there's nothing bad that has happened here. But like, I do love the like the practical effects that we do get. I love the scene in the well with all the heads and corpses down there. I love when like the boat hits the guy and he like quickly throws the prosthetic scar on his face, I guess, and comes up, and it's like, it's a gnarly looking cut. Like, you're like, all right, like I can understand why they'd be like, what the fuck happened?
When I used to get hurt as a kid, like, and I mean not hurt with my eye falling out, but when I used to like, you know, really fall down or stub my toe or hit my shin or something, I would run around and flail until it like the hurt went away, which my cousins always made fun of me about. And this dude, I felt, was really doing that. So I felt seen momentarily, even though he hit, I mean, like I said, his injury was more severe than any of the injuries as a kid that I had, where I thought that I needed to run around and make it feel better.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it, you're fine.
Yeah. This movie also proves that trauma is not real, because nobody was affected, seemingly, by the fact that this was just a run-through. Hell week, if you will, for the upcoming opening.
The flip side is probably it escalates on each person. If you're the first one to die, you're probably just like living large. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the first person to die was in that green room forever. They're building House of Cards.
Listen, that looks like a big ass house. There has to be a side powder room.
Dear God, I hope it had a Kindle.
There was books.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, all in all, this is a fun one. I liked it.
Oh, spoiler alert for this movie, if anybody hasn't seen it.
Yeah, spoiler alert for the movie.
If you haven't watched this movie and it's from 1986, I think you only have yourself to blame.
How about the very last shot of the movie with the Jack in the Box winking at the camera for reasons?
Didn't need
that gave me real Curtains vibe. Like where there's no rhyme or reason for why it's happening except to like be like, aha, one more surprise for you.
Did you get it?
Yeah, you get what happened.
Credits.
See?
And then the hell of a song that plays.
Dude, a masterpiece.
It is mind-blowing.
And heartbreaking.
How many original scripts are written every year but are never made?
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts.
Movies made of paper.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Free.
Scott, how about you go first on what did you watch this week, since Kyle was last week and I'm next week?
So I'm going to do you, Matthew, a solid because I love you. And that's no April Fool's joke. I'm going to go with my all-time favorite April Fool's movie, which I have used multiple times on this day before. Killer Party. Such a great Evil Dead ripoff. It has not one but two fake out intro scenes.
Yep.
That intro song by
White Sister.
April, you're no fool.
Yeah, we got to remember to make sure that gets posted on the old Facebook page.
Bro,
on April
don't
1st.
even think that I'm gonna forget.
You can schedule posts in the group as an admin.
I'm going to schedule. I know I can schedule. I have scheduled posts because I come up with, I think, what is a good idea. And then I'm
at like
I'm
1 in the morning and you're like, no one's going to see this.
I'm married to a social media manager. She's
That's
a professional. True. She tells me exactly when the posts are going to work.
We almost got through the whole episode without it being mentioned, but Scott did mention Curtains. But I did have another one that I actually felt more aligned with, and it was going to be Friday the 13th 3D. I just I don't know what it was, but that first half of this movie, until it got again a little arbitrary and slow with the connections of things, I was just like, this would be fun. Friday the 13th 3D would be a fun one to pair this with. It felt good.
So for my end, this one makes sense in my head, and I cannot explain why it makes sense in my head, but I went with American Gothic. I don't know why they feel like they could connect in some weird way, because they have literally no DNA that's similar. But the whole time I was watching
party,
it,
though. I mean, I'm not.
That would be that'd be fun.
I mean, and
I'm really surprised, Matt. I left it open for you to go with "There's Nothing Out There," which is also a spring break horror.
Yeah, I know, but.
And you could have even gone with Behind the Mask because of the Paradise Lost connection, which Kyle even gave you the fucking alley-oop in the first 5 minutes of the episode.
I write my shit in the moment when I'm watching it, and then I erase all other opportunities. Bad. Scott, what did you watch this week, listen to, whatever, that you want to talk about?
Okay, I do want to talk about a band that I came across thanks to TikTok, because we've been talking about TikTok today. Have you guys ever heard of Shannon and the Clams?
No.
Yes.
Oh, Kyle,
I've heard one song. I should say I've heard one song.
Have you heard Year of the Spider?
No.
That was it's the titular track off of their 2021 album. And if you take 60s girl groups, toss it in a blender with the B-52s and the Oh Hellos, or maybe indie garage rock, maybe not quite as Americana as the Oh Hellos, but it more or less stuff like that. It gives you this weird amalgamation of what they do, and I am loving it.
Nice.
It's got me in this point where, so as everybody who listens to the show, like in sort of any sort of like regular rotation knows, I have been doing these 50s rock and roll covers of pop punk songs. So I obviously love that style of music. I love all of these things. And the B-52s, I was at a record store the other day, and I stopped myself from buying 2 B-52 records because I was like, one of them had Rock Lobster, and I was like, oh, I mean, I could absolutely get down with this. But at the same time, I'm like, how often am I gonna put on the B-52s on a record player?
I can't say how often you're gonna put it on there, but I want to take a very brief second to say, listeners, if the only thing you know about the B-52s is Rock Lobster and Love Shack, dive into the B-52s because they have
every song
so
is
many
great.
Great songs.
And then listen to the Cramps.
Yeah, then listen to the Cramps.
You got an education
and check out,
coming in.
I'm gonna throw just quick recommendation because it's my favorite B-52 song, Private Idaho. Check that bad boy out. That song has a ripping guitar riff. Continue, Scott.
That's all I had to say is that if you guys haven't listened to that record, so the band, once again, is called Shannon and the Clams, which is kind of a nutty name. But then the record is called Year of the Spider. If nothing else, listen to the song Year of the Spider. It is very much like the B-52s doing the Ronettes.
All right, I'm literally logging on to Spotify, hitting play on the song, and then immediately
pausing it. Yeah.
So it's literally the next thing that I have to listen to. I'm gonna go real quick because I don't want to say too much about this movie because it is very much a like. You can't really talk about it without spoiling the twists and turns of it. On Peacock, I watched Sick, which is Kevin Williamson's new movie. I enjoyed it. I think similar to April Fool's Day, kind of polarizing. People either like really enjoyed the ride that they took with this movie or just kind of felt like like underwhelmed and not blown away by it. I don't think that this is like, unless it's a real slow year, I don't think it's making my top 10 of 2023 or anything, but I didn't hate my experience watching it. It's only like 80 minutes, which is fucking perfect. And yeah, I mean, it's COVID Scream. Like it's people isolating for quarantine and being stalked out. And then the reasons why kind of unfold and everything falls into place and makes sense. And it's, I don't know, it's dumb fun. If you enjoyed the Scream 5 movie, I think that this kind of tonally is like right in that same wheelhouse of like Gen Z slasher films, which I'm finding more and more that I enjoy. So like
it's because they've come around in a long enough trajectory that they now feel like the shit that we grew up with. Apparently,
it feels like the shit that we grew up with, and it's so. I've said this before. Like, as much as I love Scream, and I mean I love Scream, but like that movie, because it was so good at being meta about slasher films, it also fucking decimated the ability to just do a sincere non-meta slasher film for.
It's his own fault.
Yeah, for like 2 decades.
Right.
And I feel like now we're kind of falling back into where it's like, obviously like Sick exists in a world where they are aware of slasher films, but it's not like fucking talked about in every line of dialogue. Like it's literally just treated as we are in a house and there are people outside of this house and we need to do something. Like it's not just like, oh, this is just like in The Strangers. Like, you know, like it's like, no, they're fucking in the situation. They're dealing with the situation. So I do appreciate that like Gen Z is far enough removed from the original Scream that we can kind of like not have to think about everything being a referential meta aspect anymore. But yeah, I recommend it. I had fun with it. It's not, it's not going to be like anyone's best list, but it was fun.
I went back in time. Go figure. I watched a movie called Messiah of Evil.
So good.
Dude.
It's so bad, but so good.
Well, so
Didn't I
yeah.
just talk about how I like let that play on Shudder TV back like 4 or 5 months ago, and it was just such a good time?
Yes, yeah, and it was, like I had never seen it before, but if anybody's listened to the show before, they clearly know that I have an affinity for movies of that era, especially like kind of that era, not just era of time, but that era of like filmmaking and the things that people set out to do. Something like a Let's Scare Jessica to Death, anything that's kind of like in the House of Psychotic Women. Book is really great for me. My friend Jeanette, who I've talked about on here before, she came down for a visit. We're working on a short film together, and a lot of the short.
Doesn't this human being also have a podcast that you may have appeared on?
Oh, thank you. She would be so mad. My friend Jeanette, we're working on a short film together. She has a podcast called Horrors of Love that she just released that I was a guest on, where we talked about May for an hour and a half, or at least an hour of that. Half an hour of that was us talking about how we watch horror movies. But we talked about May, which is a favorite of ours. But she came down for a visit. She showed me Messiah of Evil. It inspired a little bit of her short film that she wrote. And I had never seen it. And, you know, it's one of those movies. I have it because it's on a 50 horror movie collection. Like, it was in the public domain for a while, but I know they put out a higher quality version of it, but just watching it even in that kind of shitty whatever transfer that you can get through public domain, it's really beautiful. It's atmospheric. It's fucking weird. It falls into that sort of like grindhouse exploitation, but it also falls into this sort of more beautiful 70s attention to production design stuff too. Like it balances the two things that I really enjoy about films of that era. So Messiah of Evil was great, and that's another little shout out to Horrors of Love podcast if anybody needs their fix of more horror.
And more Kyle, at least for an episode.
For at least for an episode, yeah.
All right, well, that was April Fool's Day. Got you guys by not having an April Fool's. Yeah,
you
boom,
fucking nerds.
Yeah,
cheers.
Losers. But yeah, we'll be back next week with even more Horror Movie Night.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.